Next up, we have none other than Bibarel. It is most well known for its tremendous utility as a user of various HM moves in Diamond, Pro, and Platinum. And for this reason alone, it is one of the greatest in-game Pokemon of all time, and featured on countless trainers' teams as they journeyed through Sinnoh. Besides that, Bibarel hasn't seen much attention apart from a few minor anime appearances, but that doesn't bother it. Just look at it and its pre-evolution Bidoof. Two happy, lovable beavers with their wide-eyed buck-toothed grins. Today we'll be examining how well Bibarel performed in the competitive scene. How does it do when there's no trees to cut, rocks to smash, or waterfalls to climb? We'll find out as we ask, how good was Bibarel actually? And in this video we'll be going over these competitive formats. None of Bibarel's stats are that bad. The problem is that none of them are particularly good either, which results in a low base stat total Pokemon with an uninspiring move pool that excels at nothing. As such, it is not difficult to see why Bibarel was largely passed over in its debut generation. Its highest stat was its attack, but there was no way it would carve out a niche as a physical water type anywhere. What with Gyarados in OU, Feraligatr in UU, and Floatzel in NU. They were all stronger and faster by a significant margin, and had better boosting options to boot. While Bibarel was saddled with Curse, Bibarel's unique trait of packing a secondary normal stab was not nearly as effective a weapon as it would need to be to justify its use over its competition. What made this particularly disappointing was that Bibarel had what was potentially one of the best abilities in the game, Simple, which doubles all stat changes. Obviously this could backfire, for example Intimidate would lower attack by 2 stages instead of 1, but this was worth the potential benefits from boosting moves. Being able to effectively attain 2 attack and defense boosts in the same turn was the envy of every other Curse user in existence, while the increased speed drop was inconsequential. The problem was that even after basically getting to Curse twice in one turn, Bibarel still wasn't very threatening by virtue of how low its overall stats were. The plethora of exploitable weaknesses and lack of reliable recovery didn't help matters either. It needed a ton of support, and even then, nobody bothered. It just wasn't anywhere near worth the effort. Bibarel did have a small niche in UU. Simple was an incredible ability for a Baton Pass recipient, and it thus made occasional appearances on Baton Pass teams. One Swords Dance pass to it from Gligar would actually give Bibarel +4 attack instead of +2, which meant Bibarel could actually KO UU's physical walls, though it needed the help of Stealth Rock to seal the deal against the likes of Uxie and Slowbro. Another benefit was that one Gligar Rock Polish would provide +4 speed when passed to Bibarel, meaning Bibarel didn't need EV investment to outrun the tier Scarfers. This allowed it to invest fully in bulk, which maximized its capability to receive the pass successfully. Of course, this was incredibly niche and almost never seen. Not only were such Baton Pass strategies seen as cheap and unsportsmanlike, hinging more on the opponent's inability to deal with the strategy rather than one's own skill, but they were incredibly unreliable to boot. Hinging the outcome of the entire battle on getting both boosts with Gligar and safely passing to Bibarel was already a dicey enough proposition, even with screen support. But even if you did manage to do so, that still didn't guarantee you the win. Even a +4 Life Orb Bibarel couldn't one-hit KO a max HP Registeel, and Life Orb Recoil was a particularly serrated double-edged sword, a necessary evil which Bibarel both required to KO its targets that also allowed opponents to potentially dance around it, especially since it was nearly impossible for it to avoid a hit while switching in to receive the pass. Still, on the rarest of occasions, it could catch a player off guard and facilitate a rather embarrassing sweep. However, even this gimmickry was eventually taken from Bibarel when Baton Pass was banned from UU for its overall negative effect on the metagame. All in all, Bibarel's debut generation was not at all a good one, but it at least had that gimmick going for it, which was admittingly hilarious when it did work. Early Generation 5 OU was dominated by some of the most terrifying Pokemon of all time, such as Shaman Sky, Deoxys Attack, Darkrai, and Bibarel. No, this isn't a joke. Bibarel received the Moody ability from Generation 5's Dream World and proceeded to destroy entire teams. Like its fellow Moody Pokemon Octillery, Glalie, and Smeargle, Bibarel would spam Substitute and Protect, reliably accruing multiple extreme boosts and turning into an unstoppable monster. All it needed to do this consistently was to get the first Substitute, and it did have base 71 speed, so this wasn't difficult a task, especially with all the slow Pokemon like Ferrothorn running around. Once the sub was up, it was just a numbers game that was extraordinarily skewed in Bibarel's favor, since it would have multiple powerful boosts and gained a new one every turn. Even phasing tactics like Skarmory's Whirlwind weren't reliable if Bibarel got an evasion boost, which was usually a death sentence for attacking moves aimed toward it as well, allowing Bibarel to win against Pokemon it should have had no business beating, like Bulk Up Come Kelder. Speaking of winning things it shouldn't have, the idea of spamming Substitute and Protect until you become super boosted is already inherently absurd. But what really made Moody ludicrous was that it sometimes took just one turn for its user to get a boost that would allow it to then fish for more boosts. And it was impossible to stop this first boost thanks to Protect. For example, in a one-on-one against Choice Band Terrakion, Bibarel would stand no chance whatsoever. However, it could use Protect, and if it got a speed boost, it could then spam Substitute and Protect until it got enough boost to defeat Terrakion. It wasn't just a speed boost either. An evasion boost could potentially do the trick too, as it effectively slashed Close Combat's 100% accuracy in half, giving Bibarel a 50% chance to get that all-important sub. This ability to so forcibly enact game-winning RNG was why Moody was universally reveled by the player base, seeing as it was brainless and turned Bidoof into a metagame-crushing monster. Yes, you heard correctly, Bidoof. Some players were so intent on providing Moody's ridiculousness that they spammed Moody teams with not just Bibarel, but Bidoof as well. And yes, Bidoof would attain evasion boost, among others, and wind up running through Latios and Scizor like nothing. Moody was quickly permanently banned from OU via Moody Claws, but it didn't end there. Moody was so absurd that Bibarel and Bidoof ruined teams even in Ubers. This sounds like a joke video we would do, like haha, Bidoof dominates Arceus and so on, but it really happened. From being a joke in-game Pokemon to destroying the creator, wow, what a difference an ability makes. Moody Claws has also existed in Uber since Generation 5 for good reason. Bibarel and Perfect Bidoof left their mark. Sadly, once Moody was banned, Bibarel did not see a single morsel of usage for the rest of the generation. It did not have the slightest semblance of viability even in NU, given how the tier had become severely powercraft and Bibarel had received nothing besides the ability that had been banned from Ubers. As such, it unceremoniously fell to untiered. Still, nobody would forget what Bibarel and Bidoof had done to OU and Ubers alike. They had, however briefly, made Generation 5 entirely theirs. And an interesting note on Bidoof in particular, it was never good at all in any iteration of Little Cup. But given its brief appearance in Ubers, it received the unique distinction of being a Pokemon that was better in Ubers than it was in Little Cup. Without Moody, Bibarel was relegated to once again plummeting aimlessly through the tiering rung until it landed on the cold, hard floor of untiered. Generation 6 had introduced a new lowest tier, PU, but power creep was too impactful, and Bibarel was unable to establish any sort of niche even all the way down there. It was reminiscent of Generation 4 NU and how it was so outclassed by other waters, namely the excellent Floatzel. The idea of Simple providing doubled curses in a tier with such a lower power level seemed like a nice idea, but even when surrounded by such low base stat totals, including those of not fully evolved Pokemon, Bibarel was still too weak, both offensively and defensively, barely able to switch in to begin with, and incapable of leaving any sort of meaningful mark once it had done so. To the surprise of the few who actually bothered to think about it, Bibarel dropped to untiered once again in Generation 6. Bibarel finally received some buffs in Generation 7 that wouldn't be whisked away for their universally overwhelming uncompetitive impact. It received Swords Dance, which thanks to Simple would boost its attack by a whopping +4 in a single turn. It also received a superior stat priority move with markedly better coverage, Aqua Jet. This wasn't going to send it to OU or anywhere near, but maybe, just maybe, Bibarel could carve out a niche for itself in PU this time around? Well, not really, although it wasn't like it was completely unusable. If it had received the SD Aqua Jet combo a generation earlier, Bibarel likely would have been a force in the tier. However, Gen 7 PU experienced absolutely ridiculous power creep. It was not at all difficult to completely wall Bibarel when Jellicent was one of the best Pokemon around and completely blanked both its stats. Sure, one could invest in pursuit support, but that wasn't guaranteed to work. And even if it had been, it generally wasn't worth investing in just for Bibarel when it had so many other issues besides the existence of Jelly. Not only did it struggle to find opportunities for safe setup, but it was also thwarted easily even after a boost by common Pokemon like Ferroseed, Leafeon, and Girder. Was Bibarel completely unusable? No, not at all. Though it certainly struggled against some common Pokemon, it was also potentially incredibly dangerous in the right matchup, blowing through much of the bulkier metagame and picking off revenge killers with its +4 life orb boosted attacks. The Pokemon that kept it in check were just too prominent for it to see real usage. This time around, Bibarel's untiered status was not as harsh a reflection and indicament as it had previously been, as it wasn't a purely terrible Pokemon anymore. It just didn't fit into the tier's environment, and it still had a tiny, slight niche in spite of that. And that's it. So how good was Bibarel actually? Well, most would assume that it was unusable garbage, and for the most part, it was. Except for that one moment where it wasn't, and it and Bidoof teamed up to destroy OU and Ubers alike, ensuring that Moody would never again return to competitive singles. Sadly, aside from that, Game Freak has mostly neglected it. The addition of Source Dance and Aquajet in Generation 7 was actually great, but not quite enough at that point for it to find use even in the lowest tier, as hopefully they can buff Bibarel somehow without completely destroying the balance of the game. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content, and in the comments I want to know, what do you think about competitive Bibarel? How would you buff it besides giving it another outrageous ability like Moody? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. Also, thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.